And we're back. And good morning to everybody out there. That sound never gets tiring for me. I always love the sound of bacon and eggs grilling. I just want to welcome everybody into the show. This is the fifth episode of Magicman in the Morning. We're rising, we're getting there. My co host today is Mr. Joe Soro. And Joe, welcome to the show once again. And we got game day, brother. This is a big game tonight. The Oklahoma City Thunder already in town, coming off a 1-1 mini series against the Clippers. Basically got undressed last night in the second half. What are you expecting tonight, Joe? And how much urgency do you think the team needs?
The urgency is should be out of 10 right now for the remaining season or what's left of the season. We have 9 games. I even discussed it last night uh, on Lakers fast break, where they rate the way the standings are looking right now. They're a run away from possibly getting a guaranteed seat in the playoffs, which is a 5 or a 6. And looking at the setup, you're other than the Bulls, 2 of those games, you playing almost everyone that matters in front of you or around you. If you're going to lose a game in this next 9 games, it would have to be a road game against the Bulls because that would be the least devastating loss.
Yes.
You lose to the Bulls, and I say on the road because you should win that game on at home, right? Um,
Yes.
you still can kind of avoid losing because you're not only losing a game. In a lot of ways, it's a 2-game switch because you're playing people that matter in the standings at this moment. So if you're going to lose a game, lose the back to back or lose the back to back game that you're having with Chicago on the road. Other than that, you got to win every game. If you want to reach the spot that will guarantee you not only a 100% playoff spot, which is a 6 seed and up, you're also going to give yourself a chance to possibly be effective in the first round. Because if you end up getting an 8 seed, which is likely if you kind of keep playing the way you've been playing, you probably get a play in and you might be able to get out of it. You can't get past that 8 seed if you're, let's say, a 10 seed in the play-in. So that's kind of what's at stake here. There's a lot of little things that are going to play into this, and it's going to come down to are the Lakers focused in winning games? I know that sounds really weird asking that question, but when you have a team that was winning and then decided to put their number one guy on the bench for no apparent reason, well, you saw the results of that. And for those of you who are listening and watching and wondering why we've kind of veered over to the negative side a little bit, well, it's because that's what they've created. They've created a loser's mentality. So I'm waiting for. I'm not going to predict anything. I'm not going to predict that they're going to win all everything or whatever. I just don't. I can't do that anymore. I've done that enough to where we've been burned enough. Win the goddamn games. You have the talent to do it. It's the focus now and the want. Do you want to win? And I'm not talking about the players. I'm talking about management and I'm talking about coaching. Do you want to win the games or do you want to rest people? Rest during the summer. When you're getting paid $40 million, you're supposed to be out there, especially if you can play. So that's kind of where I stand on that. They better win tonight. If they lose tonight, you just look for a 4-5 or a 5-4 finish at that point. That's kind of my prediction.
That's kind of interesting you went there, brother, because by the way, great hoodie.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I got 10 of them. I got 10 of them.
Well, if you got an XL, you can send one my
way.
way.
I don't, and that's that. My next phase of my next phase of ordering, I'm gonna get you an XL everything, and then because I'm gonna. I don't know if I'm gonna go with this style shirt, like a cotton. I might go with more of a dry fit. So
Okay.
I'll let you know once I get the XLs, because most of my guys wear mediums. They're all small guys. My stuff's double X, and but I promise you I'll get you stuff.
I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you. Um, but yeah, just going back to what you were saying there, it's sometimes it's just playing a part. You're right. Some guys just like some head coaches, they get a job because they, were slick in an interview or two. They interview well. They can baffle you with bullshit. And then all of a sudden they get in the sidelines, they get in the locker room, and players see through that right away. Like they're only looking at the TNA in the crowd, during a timeout, or they'll have the board in front of them. Their hand will be shaking, like they'll hear the buzzer go off. Nobody's called out anything, so the players are by themselves. That's happened way too many times in this league. But yeah, they need to just come out and blitz this team tonight. I would hammer them for the first 10 minutes. Just and I know this isn't part of the strategy we know with Darvin Ham, because as we've talked about before, we don't think he watches a lot of film. We don't think he necessarily has the right mix in the coaching staff, where he's getting scouting reports and or just evaluations that he can understand and apply. It's complicated with this guy. He's got his hands in his pockets more than he does, it seems, with his eyes on the game. But they need to run a lot of motion stuff tonight, Joe, and just try and get the Thunder to just be playing like on jello with their legs in the third and fourth quarter. This is the third game in 4 nights for them. They got hammered last night in the second half. So I don't have any excuses in the world for them to not show up tonight. And when you play a game you can lose, but if they don't show up tonight, it's a disgrace.
Yeah, the show up part. Uh, it's interesting showing up. We've been getting on AD for not showing up sometimes. I'm not. I don't look at it that way. I feel like he's showing up on defense every game, which is where he really flourishes. It's what made AD.
I think he understands that his presence of mind on that end is more important to the team than what he can do offensively.
It's something that he's instinctively great at. You watch him rarely get tricked on a pump fake, and his footwork is phenomenal for a guy that big, and for him to be as lateral as he is. That's probably why I don't get on AD too much, because defense is always there. And when you're always there with something that's so important, it's hard to go back and go, well, you stunk on offense and you did this, especially sometimes when a team is geared to stop you and they're always, putting a shadow next to the guy that's guarding them or whatever. Um, I'm not in the delusion that AD, I think people want him to be all go 100%.
Yeah, they want him to be something he's not.
Yeah, and that at some point you need to start getting into the realistic stage of your life and understand that you need to stop thinking he's going to get 30 and 20 every game. That's not his mentality. His mentality is to play good defense. Obviously, his offense can be very effective as well. My concern with AD is his free throws, because his free throws, even though he's still shooting 80%, it's the timing of his misses that are killing the team, and it's cost us games this year. So I'm hoping that there's a moment here, because I watched AD for an entire. I said this last night. I watched AD practically make every free throw up until the last, I think, last three shots in a finals series. And those two misses were at a time where it wasn't that important. I mean, this guy made every free throw for 5 games, and then up until the last moments of Game 6. And
And people saying he's having a down year, right? But he's still getting the line almost 8 times a
it's
game.
because winning is the one that gets focused on. He's got great numbers. His rebounding numbers are great, absolutely great. I think it's 12 and a half a game. There was some concerns on why did he end up with a block in the last game? I don't think he did.
No, I don't think he was
And
credited with the
and if you
block.
watch the game, sometimes you got to watch the game, guys. You got to really watch the game and know that sometimes there's certain setups that don't dictate the ability to block a shot. Sometimes he's guarding more forwards and more guards, and guys are passing out and doing this. And the free throw discrepancy. There was a lot of talk of that, especially from Monty Williams. If you watch the game, and I have a lot of respect for Monty, all Chris Paul and Booker were doing was shooting jump shots. There is a difference between aggressiveness and then people who are real aggressiveness, right? Now I'm gonna sound like a homer because it benefited the Lakers, but I'm not. I didn't see the same call or the same play from one side or the other. I didn't see the Suns go to the hole like the Lakers did and got the calls. No. Now, if you want to say that they called all the ticky tacks on the Lakers to get to the line, okay, I'll roll with that. But to say that they just favored one team because while the other team was doing the same thing, I go, no. You guys were not doing the same thing. You guys were doing jump shots all game. There's a difference there. So, and they missed shots. We beat the Phoenix Suns because we did our thing, and at the same time, they weren't making open shots. They usually make. That's usually how the game goes, and that's something that we've lost games at where we didn't make open shots. That's the NBA now. You either make the shots or you don't. You won't make the shots, usually you lose. Tonight, you're going to have to deal with who could be probably the best shooting guard in the NBA right now, Shai Gilgeous, when he's on, arguably. And then after that, you should be able to handle these guys on a Friday night at home, especially with what's at stake. So I'm expecting a win tonight. And then I'm expecting a win for the rest of the season. If they lose a close one and they put on all the effort, I'll tip my hat off to them. But again, are you going to quit before you start, which is what the Lakers decision makers have done? That's my only worry. And that's something that I wish I could ask the organization. Do you guys like quitting once or twice a month? They'll probably look at me like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm like, well, you guys quit on that back end of the back-to-back. Well, what do you mean? That's not what I mean. We're trying to protect our players. I'm like, there is no protecting your player. You're not even you haven't been 500 for a calendar year, more than a calendar year. I said, at what point are you going to put some steel in your balls and play? You going to worry about hurting? We're already hurting. Go in. You already burned your hand. You might as well just go and try to grab whatever you can to save whatever you wanted to save. And that's the reality of this. Let's make it happen. Let's go on a run here. You make a run. If you win 8 of the next 9 games, you are looking at possibly eliminating all the bad games from earlier in the year, or just all the games that you've blown during the year. You could end up with a 6 and 5 seed and be in a really good position, not only to have a chance at winning in the first round, but actually meeting another team in the second round that you probably are favored to beat if you're on if you're in full health and everybody's doing well, like LeBron and AD, and not meeting a Denver until the Western Conference Finals, which then the higher the stakes, and you see LeBron and AD in a Western Conference Finals, you're going to be a little bit more worried than seeing them in the first round. That's a fact.
100%. 100%. And just to add on to some commentary we've had in the chat about the Suns whining, that's perpetuated throughout basically the entire NBA. There's only a few I'd say less than a handful of head coaches who do not bark and yell, and as a result, that permeates to your team, and so your team feels that they have the entitlement to bark and yell and scream all they want to. And Phoenix has the biggest whiners in the NBA. Chris Paul, great player, Hall of Fame player, first ballot, tremendous skill, whiner. Has been a whiner his whole life. Devin Booker has turned into a whiner. KD is a whiner. Although he's not playing, he's still on the bench. Yip, 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 yip. Cameron Payne is a whiner. He's a whiner too. And if a lot of Phoenix Suns fans are trying to make this causation correlation between the fact that they're not getting the line as much over the past 10 games as their opponents, well, refereeing has been bad all year long. So go play the world's smallest violin because you're talking to Laker fans, all right? We don't want to hear it. We know how bad the officiating's been this year too. Just get over it. Stop whining about it. It's going to be bad until next year. Hopefully it'll be better. But you just got to overcome that obstacle when you've got people in positions with little to no experience. This is what you're going to get. Am I blowing smoke here, Joe? I think I'm.
The officiating has been. This is just one of the issues that I've had with Adam Silver, whom I've liked for years. His product sucks right now in a lot
It
of
does.
ways.
It does, and I hate to say that.
And the issue started with him just being a little too giving during a period where there was social unrest or just societal unrest. And this is what happens when you do that. You need when you're picked to be a leader of something like in the NBA, you have to be able to still focus on what you focus on, making sure that the ship is still going to run, instead of going, well, I'm going to let a bunch of stagehands decide what I should do with my ship. And he's reeling from that ever since. I just, because they keep talking about, it's 2023 and we still hear noises of the pandemic era where people are getting more hurt now than ever before, right? It's not. They're not getting hurt more now. They just got softer. So, and no one's really taken any, look, if you give it a child more and more slack, and yes, I am calling NBA players children sometimes. In a lot of ways, these guys have been spoiled since they were teenagers because of their immense athletic ability.
And that's what we were talking about, Joe. We were trying to talk about that earlier on a previous show about this athletic privilege and entitlement that's often not discussed enough. And you get to go to private schools, you get to go to all the cool parties, and you get all the best sponsorships, and you get all the best letters from colleges and universities, and you come from a two-parent household, which is a really great thing in life. If you're a person who can come from a two-parent household, your rate of success in life skyrockets. But yet you have other people, and you said children, who perpetuate an image that you see often. Like you said, Joe, you said it once before. Instagram now is just full of self-help guru grifters, women in scantily clad clothing who basically, are selling objectification. And we could get into that later, but it's objectifying yourself and being objectified as well.
It's the same thing though. The whole thing, now that you're mentioning it,
it's a mirror. It's just a mirror.
They blame it on women, but the men do it too, because men have become softer, just like women, which I don't mind. Now the hilarious thing about this, and I'll start with how you started this, is the whole Instagram mentality, right? The modeling.
And Yeah, go ahead.
These same people are putting up memes of so and so power, and we're here to be to define the next phase, and this whole BS. Lady, you're sending direct messages of your naked body to people, and you get paid for it. Stop telling me you're all powerful and all
Well,
that. You're
it's
look, you are what you are. You want to do that? God bless you. It's America. You can do what you want here, right? Other
well,
than hurt people.
and Joe, we need, like, it needs to be said. You don't even know you're talking to that person. Like, all these things are just factory
Well, I think
farmed
you're gonna laugh at my
cottage
next comment. Yeah, you're gonna laugh at
cottage
my next
industry
comment. Okay,
that you've got, like, okay.
you gotta laugh at my next comment. So John Morant, now that you brought it up, has a picture of some lady on his lap with the gun or wherever it was. I didn't see the gun initially, and then you got a bunch of dollar bills everywhere, right? Now I'm sitting there, and what first comes into my head is, you know how I know you're a flake? I'm sorry, a fake. You had $1 bills. If you were a real baller, there'd be $100 bills. And that's something to just kind of levy the situation a little bit.
Well, I guess the symbolism behind the $1 bill, but that's, again, that goes, like, no offense, like, I love this man on the court. He's a fantastic player, but all this imagery and conceptualization of a life that you're not only not living, it's dangerous to perpetuate something like that, because, again, you came from privilege, you came from a private school, you came from two parent household.
He could have
That's
worked he could have worked around it very quickly and said, "Look, I'm John Morant and I'm worried about my safety." But
Yeah.
that's not the case. The case is, you want to be a badass. Look, guys, people out there who want to be badasses, unfortunately, 90% of you are not. No matter how much you want to be. You're all pumpkins when it matters. And matter of fact, it's more than 90%. A lot of you guys need to accept who you are. A lot of you guys are not about it. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's
And there's levels to it. There's levels to it. I used to tell everyone, I go, I've had fun scuffles with friends or acquaintances in a sense of, like, just matching strength versus strength, right? Now I've won almost all of them, right? And the ones that I would say I didn't win were a surprise. They were a surprise at how humbled you can get if you're not careful. There are people out there much crazier than you. So you have to be able to be good at gauging your surroundings. You have to make a decision on what's worth the extra testosterone. Now, if you're going to go and try to be a tough guy next to some gangbanger, some guy that'll shoot you in the face just by looking at him, you're going to need to evaluate whether your life is worth being a tough guy in that moment. And if you really want to play that game, then you probably don't want to do it when you're a millionaire playing in the NBA in your prime.
no, there's a song called "What It's Like" that was written by Everlast, who was originally in the Boston hip hop group House of Pain. And he talks about a guy who liked to talk tough and pulled out a 45 one night and he didn't wake up. So oftentimes, Joe, when like you said, when people are about that life, they don't need to prove it. It's not and like, I was a paramedic for almost 10 years, man. You can't lie to the streets. The streets know you're full of it. The streets know when you're full of it. And I think he just got called out for being full of it. And we'll just
Yeah, the
kind of veer.
streets. Yeah, the streets. If you don't bother the streets,
They don't bother you.
it
That's
usually
the way
doesn't
it
bother
is.
you, right? And everyone knows the rules. The people that I've known that are about that. I don't know. I've not known many, but I have met a few. They're pretty smart. They know who to. They know. There's a reason why certain people who you would think might have an issue with certain things in that world that don't. Well, if you know not to get in people's business, then you're likely going to be in good shape. Now, some people are, and I know Nick Saban doesn't agree with this. Sometimes you are in the wrong place at the wrong time. You might get a
Yeah,
stray bullet.
you're not sure you're in a strange city. You're not sure what territory belongs to who, and yeah, you end up in the wrong place
But at
at
the
the
same
wrong
time,
time.
you'll never see me late at night. If you guys know LA very well, I'm not going to be late at night in between the 110 and the 10, or
Well,
it's
that I think that's one thing about Training Day that was so beautiful, Joe, about the way it was shot, about the way Antoine Fuqua shot it, is that you can get lost in Los Angeles very easily. A lot of people talk about New York, they talk about Paris, they talk about other metropolis cities, but you can get lost in Los Angeles very easily. And that was a portrayal of the film. I thought that was just beautiful. It was beautiful.
Yeah, there's two spots in Southern California that I've been to where I was like, oh, I got to get out of here. And I mean, it was quick. I was traveling south on the 110, trying to get to the next freeway to get to one of the main freeways to get back to Temecula. And I exited and wanted to put gas. It was both occasions I was putting gas. As I was putting gas, I did one of these. I'm like, holy crap, I got to put this in real quick, get the hell out of here. San Bernardino one was the worst one probably because I could literally see people walking towards us from the other gas station, knowing that they're going to ask for money or God knows what. I mean, it was like they saw us, and I mean, it was like they start speed walking towards us. I didn't even fill up the tank. I was like sitting there watching them. I'm going, oh, this mother, you know what, is going to freaking come over here. I'm like, I don't have time to deal with this. So yes, your sixth sense. If I had to tell anyone in raising children or yourself included in general, the person, train yourself how to be aware of your surroundings, and that will be very beneficial for you to in terms of self preservation.
Yeah, that like
But
people.
this thing with John Morant, I mean, you're listening to him talk, right? And I'm going, I'm seeking therapy and I'm working on my issues. It's like you go from one fake BS to another worse fake BS. Just come out and say, look, I carried a gun because I'm John Morant and I don't give a F. But guess what? Yeah, I got a lot to lose. So now I got to scale back. You know, much
Meanwhile,
respect.
meanwhile, in the exact same news cycle, and a lot of people probably didn't even know this or pay attention to it. Sean Kemp was initially burned at the stake because people thought he was firing in a public place in basically like a shootout, and the cop said no, no, actually, Mr. Kemp was defending himself. So it's just this spin, how everything can just get turned around on a dime, and we could get into it for eons. The Memphis Commercial Appeal, that newspaper, they knew about all this crap. They knew about, but Jaw was good for the city.
Well, yeah.
It created a new business revenue for them, and they just decided to subvert it and shove it away into a file for as long as they could until it came out. And then they said, oh yeah, we did file a story about that, but we put it in the 17th page of the newspaper rather than the front page.
And that's part of the issue too. It's always been an issue where the media tries to sucker you into this false sense of what's really going on. And it's why we despise the Skip Baylesses and the Nick Wrights and these people. These people are a big part of what fake news is. Donald Trump got the moniker because he used those two words, but fake news has been going on forever. And that's what people want to listen to because most people are fake as F. Yes, it is your fault. The audience, the people that are reading the trash that you're reading, it's your fault. They're just giving you what you want. You want to read fake stuff. You want to read that Sean Kemp was six shooting in some mall or whatever the hell was going on. You want to believe that John Moran is a thug. You want to believe it. Reality is you're so bored with your life that not all the action movies, not all the school shootings is enough for you. No, you got to read about how John Morant is carrying a gun.
Yeah,
And that was my first, that was my
yeah.
first, and for like, well, okay, so he's carrying a gun. Now what? Like, I don't see what the problem is.
Yeah, well, I'll just end the conversation here and just he could talk. He can get therapy if he's getting that. I don't buy it. You want to be about that life? Read the Rolling Stone article, "Gangster in the Huddle," about Aaron Hernandez. Because if you're about that life, you'll end up in the same two places he ended up. He ended up in jail, and then he killed himself. Those are your only two options when it comes to that life.
And then they'll blame it on CTE, right? That seems to be and that's the problem, guys. I'm not saying that CTE isn't real. I'm not saying a lot of these issues in life are not real, right? The problem is, why is he doing what he's doing and other people who have what he has aren't doing that? So at some point, the responsibility needs to get back at the person making the problem instead of blaming blaming the parents, and blaming the God, and blaming the school system, and blaming this and this and that. At some point, a grown-ass adult's going to make their own decisions. Aaron Hernandez is a great example in that he actually followed through his tough guy thing. But the thing is, he was so dumb, he didn't know how to cover it, which, goes to show you that maybe this wasn't for him. The guys that do it right aren't getting caught. That's why they did it right. So it's the NBA life in general. And the reason why we're talking about this is because it does play a factor in all of the stuff we're talking about with the LA Lakers. The LA Lakers have a soft mentality. They have a victim's mentality. And we're going to call it out. I know I am. You cannot sit there and tell me you're a victim, and you're not. I'm not saying literal victim. Well,
it's just like one example, Joe, and just like from what you were saying, is just the fact that you're the, let's face it, they're the eminent franchise. We can say that now because they have as many titles as the Celtics. You're the most eminent, enriched NBA franchise. You're at the top of the pyramid, and you take out a PPE loan. That to me, that's the exhibit, the evidence of what you're talking about. Just that one act alone.
So I'm glad you brought that up. The issue, there's so many little things that I look at that will define who you are. It's not going to you don't need to be this person that's firing everybody or fire and brimstone. No. There are a lot of times worse ways with the little pecks that you do, the little things that define who you really are. Because I believe at this point, and this footage is going to come back. I've gone back and forth on this. I'm like, is this footage that I've said about certain people on here? Is it going to come back to haunt me? No, I don't get haunted anyways. The point is, it might not give me privilege in certain places, but here's why. Okay. You brought up something very important. You are a 7 billion. You might not be worth 7 billion on paper, but your franchise would sell for $7 billion. And there are companies like my cousin's restaurant who got hurt a little bit during the pandemic who need those PPP loans. and you go take one out for $1 million. What does that tell you? Why? So when all my friends who are kind of on the other side of the political spectrum, right? They sit there and they're like, you see, and then that's the time when they're correct, right? That's the time they are correct. Where why would you go and get $1 million loan in an area where, yeah, I know it's legal. I know it's legal. Everyone's like, it's legal. That's not the
You know,
point.
you know
Point
what,
is,
Joe? There's a difference between what's legal and what's ethical.
exactly. So to me, that shows who you are. And it wasn't just that. Then you look how you tell the wife. You didn't even have the balls to tell Jerry West to his face that he no longer had his set tickets he's had for God knows how long. To
There,
me,
there's there,
those are that's little evidence. So if this comes back, if you guys, this is great that you asked this because I've always wanted to go into more detail on this. So if Jeannie or the Lakers organization or anybody associated with the company watches this video down the road when they're doing the little research, you tell me, you sit me down and you tell me if I'm wrong. That those aren't two of the weasel, whatever word you want to use, moves that you can make. You want to be cheap and not pay players? That's your business. You want to be someone who's, I don't know if I want to, spend this much money on a coach, which is why we probably got Darvin Ham. Okay. But those little things is what I look at. Those little things. You didn't even call Caruso to,
no.
like you do things that just like you're a weasel. You don't have any I don't know. You don't
There's
have
no
any.
ethics. There's
I
no
mean,
ethics.
people have different levels of ethics, whatever it is you want to call it. You don't have enough. I always say, the stuff down there where you could at least communicate it. Look, Alex, we're going to choose. We've chosen Taylor Horton Tucker, and we don't want to go into the tax. We can't afford to pay you. We love you. Laker Nation loves you. Good luck. Maybe we can get lucky down the road and bring you back. Why can't you talk like this? Did they? Maybe they did. Maybe we didn't hear about it. But according to what Alex said no one's called them, right? But those little things to me tell me a lot about who you are. And the other, I want to also praise some of the things they've done. I thought what they did with the Slava thing was great. I thought what they did with Powell was great. So it's not, I don't want to be unfair here. I want to mention some of the good stuff that they've done. But it almost makes you more invigorated or makes you more upset that you do these little things here that are good, and then you do this. I don't know. It just, I don't know. Maybe I'm being harsh. Maybe I'm being, whatever. But it just, I don't know. I just be you. Just be normal all the time. But people can't do it. They just got to have some kind of fake thing going on all the time. I don't know. I don't get it.
Joe, you're a human being. You're a businessman. It's the little things that kill. It really is. The little things eat away at a healthy organism more than anything else. And it just starts with a bit by bit by bit by bit, and that's how it happens.
I'm going to take it harder because it's the Lakers, because that's my team. And one of the great things about the teams that I like, they represent the fan, right? The Dodgers, the Lakers, and the Steelers represent me in some way and how they handle their business. So when they start to veer off into something that I'm not really identifying with, it becomes harder to kind of support certain people that are doing that stuff, because we saw for years how, Dr. Buss, people forget this. Dr. Buss wasn't spending money in the early 2000s. He was pretty,
No.
Money conscious. And they didn't sign Ori in 2005 because they didn't want to pay him. They couldn't pay him. It's too much money. Shaq had to leave because Dr. Buss told him, look, I could pay you 20 million. I can't pay you 30. So I remember there was some venom towards Dr. Buss at that time. I didn't look at it that way. I said, look, this, you have to also be understanding that this is also a business, and he's trying to make sure that the business is working. And when he does, see, here's the other thing. When you have something that makes sense, he was a chemistry guy, right? The doctor in chemistry. So when you told him, look, you got to overpay to go get Phil Jackson so he can win a damn ring, he did it. He did it. Yeah, I'll overpay if it makes sense. So you can't fault somebody who then gets into a situation where it doesn't make sense, and then they make the decision that you don't like. That's not right either. So that's why we love Dr. Buss, is when he thought, you know what, this might work, he did it. When he thought, nah, I don't know if this is going to work, you still respected him for it because that's business, that's life. But with this, I guess, leadership contingency, there's been so many just, I don't know, D- type decisions. And a lot
Yes.
of it isn't bad decisions, good decisions. Just what the hell are you doing? Do you even know what you're doing? That's that's
Yes.
that's kind of where that is.
Yeah. You know something, Joe? This has particularly been a great conversation. We need to get into it in depth later on, but as we take a right off of Main Street and head down to Madison Square Garden, there was a pretty good game at Madison Square Garden last night with Lee's Michigan State Spartans playing the Kansas State Wildcats. It was a great game. Like the first game and the last game were great. I wasn't too impressed with the in between there, but K State pulls it out, Joe. They're heading to the Elite Eight. They defeat the Spartans. The second half of the four pack was incredible. The Gonzaga Bulldogs and the UCLA Bruins, who have probably the the biggest rivalry in college basketball right now. They've played each other so many times at this point, and it's gone back and forth. And of course, we all know it started with Adam Morrison, Ammo, just collapsing on the court after the game because he gave it his all and it wasn't good enough. But Gerald's hometown boy, Julian Swather, hit an incredible 3-point shot late in the game show. I'm not sure if you saw it, but his feet were actually standing on the March Madness S by half court as he let this thing go. And he hit it with 1.1 seconds left, and that was it. That was it. The Bruins were gone. Did you happen to see the game? And what have you made of the March Madness so far? Because we talked about it pre-show, and it's been one of the best.
Yeah, I'd say right now, up through the first half of the Elite Eight, it's been pretty entertaining. The Kansas State run is getting interesting. They've beaten two powerhouses the last two games, and the issue with the tournament is a lot of times you can, you know, play yourself out of beating a good team like that or teams and then kind of coming up lame in the next game. So we never really know if they can roll all the way through. But
No,
I've been impressed by Kansas State, and if they continue to play the way they're playing, uh, there's a possibility they're probably going to get to the Final Four at the very least, maybe even the title game. Now Gonzaga beat UCLA last year, and rightfully so. They were one seed at the time, but they did beat them by 3 as well. Gonzaga seems to have been just getting closer and closer to this thing, to seeing when they're going to actually take it all. And I'm going to be curious to see if that's something they finally end up doing this year, because this might be the best time to do it. Not going to really run into any Power Five type schools. And I say Power Five as in, the Kentuckys, the Dukes, and those teams. Not going to run into any of those teams, it seems like, this year. So this might be your chance to finally hold up the NCAA title after all these amazing runs since the Morrison Gonzaga kind of uprising. because that's probably when we started hearing a little bit more of Gonzaga being a perennial elite tournament team.
Yeah, and we're gonna find out tonight too, because your alma mater is going up against the number one seed Crimson Tide. Um, if they knock them out, oh boy, then you're really talking about a Buck Wild Elite Eight Final Four, because if Alabama is gone, that means Houston's the only one at the dancing right now.
And they're playing a very good Miami team, although I still think Houston will win. But boy, I always get a kick out of a I coined the term secondary sport for a school. So Alabama has obviously been the best college football team in the last 15 years, without a doubt. Uh, and to have their basketball team come in the way they have, a little bit of me says, how funny would it be if Alabama wins an NCAA championship in basketball? Especially with all the funny comments that people say about those people out in Alabama and the South. They seem to always produce the best student athletes and athletes in general, right? So a little bit of me says, obviously, I'm going to be cheering from San Diego State. I think it would be amazing to see San Diego State go all the way. I don't know if that's possible though. But if they don't and Alabama wins, I'm going to probably have a little bit of favoritism towards Alabama to see if they can actually take an NCAA basketball title on top of that. Because at that point, everybody down in the SEC and hell, everybody around the country is just like, really? Really? What the hell is it? You can't just say it's Nick Saban at that point.
No,
Who is the athletic director over there? Who is the chancellor over there? What are they doing in Alabama? Well, I'll tell you what they're doing in Alabama. Okay, this is something coming from Nick Saban, and for those of you who've been paying attention to Sean and I talk about Nick Saban, we obviously like how he does his business. I have
yes.
always liked how Nick has done it. As a matter of fact, I had an ongoing joke. You think Nick Saban gets up in the morning, looks in the mirror and goes, I'm Nick effing Saban? And most people say yes. At least I would like to think yes. But so now what's interesting is Nick Saban would say when he was being courted by USC and Texas, he said, look, the kids down south pay attention and listen. Kids in California don't do that. And even Texas doesn't do what they do down there, which I was actually surprised by that. So
Like
Texas,
the only really kind of like East Coast prospect that has kind of flourished under his tutelage there was Minka Fitzpatrick. But Minka, like, the weird thing about Minka Fitzpatrick was he wasn't really highly recruited out of high school, even though he was one of the best safeties in the Jersey, Philly, New York, that tri-state area, Joe. So it just goes to show you how you also have a man who doesn't look in the mirror and says, "Oh, how great I am." He finds diamonds in the rough. Like he will go to football fields in Evansville, Illinois, or Cleveland, Ohio, or he'll go to West Virginia.
you look at the history of those who do their job correctly. I'm glad you brought that up because it's important to understand why certain people in executive positions are great versus ones that are not great. The NBA has a major problem where they hire GMs that have absolutely no business being a GM. Are they in high school gyms in the middle of nowhere? Jerry West, the logo was in high school gyms. He wasn't too proud. Hey, I'm Jerry West. I'm going to recruit when they have their events. No. He went into those sweaty, rundown gyms
With no air conditioning.
with no air conditioning, and he did his job. And a lot of it, I believe, he loved. That's probably why, because it kind of maybe brought him back to whatever he thought, of what it was back in the day. I'm going to assume. Regardless, he did his job, did it right. So you're talking about Minka Fitzpatrick, whom I have a lot of knowledge about because I'm a huge Steeler fan. Haven't missed a game this century. Minka Fitzpatrick was discriminated against because of geographical setup. Oh, who's this kid in Jersey? He's probably going to be some whatever, right? Because down south, hey man, we can pluck whatever the hell we want over here. And that happens. That happens. They assume, well, he's in Jersey. He's probably, more into basketball, blah, 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 whatever. Who knows what it is?
Right.
But Nick Saban is really good at being able to probably gauge and observe things that most people can't.
And him being a defensive back specialist, he would know.
Absolutely. So look what this guy has done. And don't tell me that he isn't a part of this. Okay. He's a huge part of it. Alabama is a 1 seed in the NCAA basketball tournament. If I didn't know any better, I wouldn't even think Alabama had a basketball team. Right.
Right.
I mean, so.
And what Joe's saying is Nick Saban is largely responsible to help them get to where they are because of the success of the football program and being able to divert that money in the other athletic programs. And this is what a lot of people were talking about during COVID. You want to know how universities and schools make their money? It's basically through their either the football program or the basketball program, and everybody gets to eat off of that.
I'm cheering for Alabama if they beat San Diego State because I want those good things to come to those who have put in who are doing it right. Nick Saban is not John Calipari. Sorry, John. I know I don't have anything against John Calipari, but he toes the line. Him and Pitino toe the line. There is no towing the line with Nick Saban. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to do anything. Now, I'm not being naive here and saying it hasn't happened. I don't really know. But if I had to take a guess, I don't think he's needed to, do anything crazy.
No.
And I think we would have found out by now. But this is an example of what he said and what's going on. These are the results. Again, we're in the results business. Alabama has a number 1 seed in the NCAA basketball tournament, not football. So what that means is Alabama seems to be finding these kids who not only are talented, but also are good with instructions, good with discipline, and are doing what needs to get done. Take a page out of that. Now, Texas, I was just going to talk about Texas and we already know about California, but Texas, Texas has this, we're Texas and we're big and this, all that. The reality is, though, from my findings, is the Texas culture in football, especially, there's a lot of elitism there. And that's why he didn't end up in Texas. He didn't want to deal with the fact that you're going to probably be talking to kids and coaches in Texas high schools that think they're the what. And you don't get that in the South. You just don't. Even though they're close together, it's just a different culture over there. The high school kids and the high school coaches out there are gods to some of these guys.
You look at the recruiting, Joe. I mean, this is going to be, again, the third year in about 6 or 7 where Alabama puts another quality basketball player into the league. Colin Sexton, Herb Jones, and now Brandon Miller. You're right. It's not as if all these 3- and 4-star guys are maybe transferring to Bama. No, some of them are actually choosing to go to Alabama.
And, my favorite Alabama player will always be Robert Horry. And
yes, 100%.
Yeah, so it's and imagine bringing Robert Horry to a recruiting event.
7 rings just on the table. Yeah,
Robert Horry. We've talked about Horry. Geez, I mean, it's been since 1997, and my friends and I, every memory we have involves Robert Horry in some capacity, even until now.
And
So
we're in
again,
2023 now
yeah,
too, right,
yeah,
Joe?
yeah.
And so when you're black or brown, you can go to University of Florida, you can go to Alabama, you can go to Mississippi, you can go to Kentucky and not have to really worry about it. And it's not like it was 40 or 50 years ago. And I know I'm kind of tiptoeing around some issues, but it happened. That's just the way it is at one point in time. As disgusting and
Vile.
unconscionable, yeah, vile as you can get. But now, young men are now able to take volition of their own futures, their own careers, and they're choosing places like the University of Alabama because all one person can't change the world, but one person can change an entire organization. And that man, Nick Saban, is just an example of that. And Jerry Buss was an example for us as the Lakers. Before we head out, Joe, I wanted to get your opinion on something here because I've been wrapping my brain for the past, I would say, 6 months, trying to really figure out a realistic solutions for the NBA officiating woes and just sheer incompetence. Like it's at this point in time, it's embarrassment to not only us, but now they're talking openly in the media that they're getting text messages, emails, conversations with NBA executives around the league just completely floored by the lack of competent, realistic, unbiased officiating. They're pulling out their hair, they're biting their nails just like the rest of the fans are. And so I've been racking my brain trying to come up with something. So here are to me are three realistic options I think they could take, okay? One, and their union probably won't like this, is that they need a fourth official. And you need a fourth official to be, I would call them a roamer or a rover, where you're not in a fixed position on the court. You are actually able to be mobile and move around and make sure you can see that the play as best as you can. Because I shouldn't have to have a game where I have three officials and the one official on the near side of the court sees a foul but doesn't call it, but the one on the far side does. That's not the way people should be doing their job. You see it, you call it. That's their job. You see it, you call it. There's too much bias to me. There's too much subjective bias now in calling fouls because you could go in any four different arenas throughout the NBA. You could go to Utah, Toronto, LA, Milwaukee, Minnesota. A block could be a charge in Milwaukee where it's a charge in LA, or it's a block in Toronto. So to me, I think a fourth official would be beneficial for them. Now, if they don't want to go that route, I think another option they have, and it could alleviate and mediate a lot of their mistakes, is go with an Elam ending or a target score in overtime. Get rid of the 5 minutes. Get rid of the clock. If we have an Elam ending or a target score, the game will be over in that amount of time anyway. It takes the clock out of their heads, so they don't have to worry about that. All they're concerned about is the shot clock and what's going on the court. They're not distracted by another influence that could affect them, and it does. The third one I had, and this is probably the least likely of the three, but I think they might be able to give it a shot, is that at the end of 2 minutes, with 2 minutes left in each half, just like the NFL, all reviews go upstairs. Take it out of their hands again. The least amount of responsibility and accountability these people should have, Joe, should be limited at this point because they've shown themselves to be completely incompetent. What do you think about any one of those three options being realistic?
Unfortunately, none. There is. it's hard to fix a problem where you you can see that the referee is positioned in the right place, looking at the same thing we're looking at and not calling a foul. And I'm calling the referee out for the LeBron hack. Why did he not see that hack? It was clear as day. We didn't even see it from the front view. We saw it from the side view, and I saw the hack. Why is he not seeing that foul? And why did he not call a foul? That is a blatant one. I've seen two fouls in my life that have always stuck in my head, and I never understood what was going on. One was that. The other was Bobby Jackson pulling Kobe's jersey out of his shorts in the last second shot in game 5 of the 2002 Western Conference Finals. So all this hoopla about game 6 being rigged, no one talks about game 5 of the 2002 Western Conference Finals. That was just one play too. It was one of the worst officiated games I've ever watched until game 6 in the fourth quarter. So, but people want to see what they want to see, right? Big bad rich company, rich man, whatever, team, whatever. It's okay for the little guy to get it, but not the big guy. See, and that's the part. That's why we dilute things. You will accept something for its mediocrity or its bad play here, but you won't accept it here. So going to your point, Adam Silver came out the other day after the Fred Van Fleet was criticizing the refs, talking about how beautiful and rosy his officiating is. I'm like, Adam, what the hell's wrong with you? What are you talking about? They've been terrible this year. You're either in denial. Okay, so you don't fix a problem that everyone in your league is talking about. This is the thing that just drives me nuts. You were accommodating in all these social issues, but you're not accommodating your people in the actual part of your league. And saying, and I know you're trying to support your officiating and you don't want to look bad, but you look bad. It's over already. It's over. Your officiating has cost teams possible playoff spots.
When Luka does this in front of your officials, you got a problem.
Okay.
You got a problem when an employee is doing that to one of your partners. You got a huge problem.
You can talk all you want, but the problem is, just like the players in the NFL in 2011, when they had a really good shot at sticking it to Goodell and the owners, they wilted like pea-covered toilet paper in the end. You had a small window where you could have stuck it in those guys. Those guys make $200 million a week. Okay, $200 million a week. You could have stuck it, but you know what? You couldn't, because you couldn't lose your little 100,000 for the week, for 1 week. You couldn't. You had to. You don't manage your money right? Or you're some, practice squad guy that needs to play, right? And they know that. Imagine if you're going to negotiation and they know your weakness. Now what? How do you flip it on them? Well, you flip the weakness into a strength. You know what? F you and the money. I'm going to make sure you lose $200 million. So these players who are complaining, well, I'm expecting Michelle Roberts to do something then, right? She's the representative, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are you guys going to do? Are you going to discuss this officiating issue in the collective bargaining agreement? No, you're not. No, you're just talking about money. Hey, how are we going to make more money? Oh, we hate the refs. Oh, we're going to complain about the refs or whatever, and do this stuff. But when it matters, where are you? For the fans, if the salary cap keeps going up, what are we doing? We're doing nothing either. We're just sitting here whining and crying, and Adam Silver's sitting there going, "You're still watching. You're still going to watch, and you're still going to pay for stuff that we're doing. So why do I got to change anything?" So nothing will get done, and nothing has been done. I mean, the Donnelly thing happened and nothing got done then. Nothing will ever get done anymore. I think that's probably why we're suffering as a society is no one does anything anymore and no one fixes anything because they don't have to. We're not putting their feet to the fire. The only thing that'll move anything is if you do something bigotry on someone. That's the only thing that you see someone pretty much get their heads cut off and they're gone.
So, Joe, do you were you old enough to remember when Kodak first came out?
No.
Okay, so Kodak was a great product. Uh, it was the only one of its kind. You took a picture, came out, right? It was beautiful. It was a beautiful business. Kodak went under because they didn't see the forest for the trees. That was a great product. They cornered the market on it, but they just didn't have the foresight or the pivoting skills to understand where technology was going. I remember Nathaniel Hawthorne, great American writer, once said, "Families are always rising and falling in America, like the sun and the moon." And to me, that's true about business in America too. Adam Silver has a I love the NBA, Joe. I've professed my unconditional love for it, but the product sucks. You're right. Let's just be honest about it right now. The product does suck. And a big part of that is that instead of paying attention to the actual product, he's more worried about the garden surrounding the house rather than the house itself. And the house is starting to look dilapidated. So you can have the prettiest garden in the world, Joe. But if your house is a piece of shit, it'll go on the market and it'll stay on the market.
You had players protesting during social unrest. What happened? Things moved. You got to speak with your pocket. You got to speak with your activity. If these guys really care about the officiating and fixed, then you're going to have to go to another level and say, look, we're not going to play this game anymore unless he's fixed this officiating issue. But as far as fixing the officiating issue, how are you going to tell some guy who was standing right there while LeBron getting hacked in the arm? How are you going to talk him into saying you saw that? You can't. He might say, "I didn't see it. I'm
You
sorry.
know,
I was paying
yeah,
attention to the basket."
that's right. Okay. I'll
So
I'll
so
I'll, I'll say
my thing is here's what my remedial solution would be. You have to have tryouts of hundreds of refs, and there's going to need to be a lot of tape and a lot of just you gotta be able to do like a point system where you can gauge this particular crew or this guy called a foul on everything that was 9 out of 10 fouls. He called 9 of them.
And you know what's amazing about all this is that throughout the last 20 years, Mark Cuban hasn't shut up about the officiating. No matter how much they fine him, they punished him when he was first an owner in the NBA for complaining and critiquing the officials. 100 grand, 100 grand, 100 grand, 500 grand. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. He sees it for what it is too. He sees it for what it is. And you're right, Joe. They need to start looking at something like that because you know what? Hiring your wife's uncle or hiring your brother's nephew's son who's got a criminology degree, or you hire Jason and Jack Goebel, who used to be former Miami-Dade cops. Just be, and I know this for a fact. Just because you are an authority figure in one field of your life doesn't mean you can be another one in another. That sometimes the skills don't translate. Just because you're a great cop in Miami-Dade doesn't necessarily make you a good official in Salt Lake City or New York or LA. I'm sick of the like you said, the hypocrisy. It's the cronyism and the nepotism that goes on in the NBA front office, where all these officials or former officials just look out for themselves and they're not looking out for the product, which is what they're. Oh, I caught myself, Gerald. They they need to pay attention to what their job is,
You
and it's
solve the
not and it's not looking out for number one.
So you have, let's say, every team plays on a certain night. You're looking at 3 referees for 15 games. That's 45 referees. Let's say you have another 15 that kind of stay in the back just in case they need to do whatever, whatever. So you're looking at 60 referees in the NBA. You're telling me you can't run a program where you're training referees and grading them. The NBA would be the easiest one to do, other than maybe baseball. I mean,
Well, here's a
you
here,
create
I
your
have
own refs, create your own refs, and base it off of the fact that you've got this particular ref. And when it's a lot of work, but you're a $20 billion freaking league. You could train your referees based off of their performance, and you're grading them on games that matter. You're grading them on games that matter. Yeah, it might not be an NBA Finals game, but it's that they're trying to earn a job. There's pressure there. There's a will to want to do well. So when you train guys, it's just like anything else. How easy is it for a plumber to change out a garbage disposal? It's easy. It's like they don't even think about it because they've done it so many times. Well, that's what you need to do. You need to find guys, put them in a program, and grade them based off of what you see. Look, if the guy's standing here and you can see that the guy got fouled right here, and you're watching it, you rewind the tape just like you do when you're training for football, basketball. Like, what were we doing over here? Why didn't you block this guy? Why don't they do that? Do they do that? I'm sure they do something,
yeah.
but they're not solving the problem. So what is it? What is it? Other than now we're starting to, are they in on the take? Like, what's going on here?
See, yeah, because when your player does this, it puts the image in people's brains that think, that's interesting. Oh, and he didn't get fined for it, and he didn't get suspended for it. So I'll end this thought experiment with this one last question, because our problem in the NBA is a pervasive one. So, Mr. Soro, you're an avid sportsman. You said that you either went or watched to over 111 Dodger games last year. So I'll pose this question to you. Joe Soro, could you name 15 umpires off the top of your head right now? No. And I could ask Laker Tom that question. I don't think he would give me 15 names either, and neither could Gerald. But why can we name Scott Foster, Danny Crawford, Joey Crawford, Tim Donaghy, Eric Smith, Jason Go? I could go on and on and on. We shouldn't, when you're doing your job right, I shouldn't know your name and you shouldn't know mine ordinarily, because we're both doing our jobs and then we both go home. But if I keep seeing and hearing your name over and over again, one of two things is happening. One, you're notorious or infamous for being incompetent or being a problem. Or two, you actually do really great work and people just have to reward you for it. That's not happening in this game. That's why we can name off officials like we can name off Haagen-Dazs ice cream. Um, the NBA needs to fix this problem somehow, some way, or at least acknowledge that you can't put a band-aid on it anymore. It's bleeding. You are bleeding. You need something more than a band-aid. It needs to be sutured up. And with that, We'll end the fifth episode of Magic Man in the Morning. I want to thank my guests and co-host Joe Soro. Joe, we got 5 in the bank right now. Hopefully it'll continue. I think we're getting better and better. And everybody, have a great Friday. We'll see you tonight, and the Lakers will win.